You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Welcome to One Bite is Everything, the podcast that connects every bite you take to the bigger world, sparking curiosity and inspiring you to ask more questions about the food on your plate. I'm your host, Dana DiPrima, and today's episode is one of those conversations that reminds you government cuts aren't just headlines. They ripple out in very real, very personal ways. Today we're talking with farmer Jamie Pritchard of WIT Farm, W-I-T, short for whatever it takes. She's in rural Ohio. You've probably heard news headlines about government cuts, but today's episode shows you what those cuts actually look like on the ground. When support disappears, it doesn't just disappear on paper. It disappears from fields, from communities, and from lives. Jamie's story is honest, raw, and urgent. This isn't about partisanship. It's about people, farmers, communities, and a food system that's already stretched too thin. It's about the food on all of our tables. So, settle in. This is an important one.
So the farm is 33 acres, rolling hills. There is not a single stretch of flat grounds. We raise hogs, chickens, turkey, and my girls also do rabbits. So we have a little bit of rabbit meat here and there. I partner with another farm that does beef and another farm that does chicken eggs. So we kind of have most of everything all in one spot. My main farmers market, we really don't have any other protein sources. So I kind of have to bring all of it in and sell it right at my booth.
Okay, and let's talk about your income. So it's the farmers market is one place where you're selling, but give me a little bit of your pie chart on how.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the program that we're going to be talking about was about 50%. So a very large chunk. I do one farmer's market. This year, I'm going to do 2 tents where frozen meat at one and breakfast sandwiches at another, using all local ingredients. So that's fun. I do a meat CSA with lots of add-on shares. I do bulk buying, so you can buy a quarter beef or a half hog. I have, I think, 2 or 3 wholesale accounts, a restaurant. I've got 4 more wholesale accounts kind of in the onboarding process. And that's, that was a goal of mine before we knew this was happening. But now it's very imperative to be able to continue at the level that I was to bring those on.
So you're hustling in all directions.
Yes. I get a lot of flack for that please just settle down. My goal every year is to not add on any more projects. And always there's something little shiny sparkly that I'm really interested in. So I've got to do it.
And the program that you mentioned that we're going to talk about, I'm very interested to hear. This is Local Food Purchase Assistance Program. So explain to me what that is.
So their goal, and I'm going to quote, is the goal is to maintain and improve food and agricultural supply chain resiliency. So how they are doing that is matching socially disadvantaged suppliers with food insecure communities. So it's a win-win all over the place because these are farmers and producers that would not typically get such a big account. Food banks are typically looking at the most cost-effective way to feed these people. So it is not small farms. It is not, somebody who is beginning. It is not somebody who has a lot of input cost. We're talking about Tyson and people like that.
The Local Food Purchase Assistance Program, LFPA, is a game changer for both local farmers and underserved communities across the United States. With a mission to boost the availability of fresh, locally grown food, LFPA connects communities with healthier farm-to-table options, all while supporting small-scale producers in their communities. This program allows underserved communities to tap in to a broader range of nutritious foods, reducing reliance on processed food and out-of-state supplies. It's a win-win. Local economies thrive as farmers gain access to stable markets, and these communities get to enjoy meals that are not only tastier, but more sustainable. By funding direct purchases from local farmers, LFPA helps create meal programs that are fresh, culturally relevant, and environmentally responsible. In an era where food systems are facing numerous challenges, LFPA stands as a vital force in reimagining how we nourish our future. Generally speaking, the food banks are getting cheap food from industrial farms.
Exactly. So I live in Muskingum County. Like I said, middle of nowhere. It's a pretty impoverished place. And when I drop off at the food bank, really it's a hub for 12 other smaller organizations. So they split up everything that they get and they're going out to the really small, really rural communities. We're feeding elderly, those who may already be on some sort of assistance and just need a little bit extra help, or the people who just barely don't meet the criteria, but still need help. I mean, I'm a farmer and could use help. So, everyone in the country right now could use a little help. So it's really focusing on those who have not been served previously.
And when you say there's a bunch of organizations, they all sort of plug into this food hub. What kind of organizations are they?
So they're just smaller organizations that provide meals. So it can be nonprofits. It could be just, a private thing where they just kind of know a bunch of people who are in need. So they go into this food hub, which is in Zanesville. So that's a little bit more socialized for everybody. And there is a truck that comes from Columbus from the Mid-Ohio Food Bank that brings stuff to them. So we're disseminating all the way from the state level to the county level to just little towns. So these people are not having to come an hour and a half away to get this food.
Okay, and how many farmers are contributing to this?
So I can only speak for Ohio. In the first year, the goal was to have 50 producers to be part of that. It ended up being 164. So it is everybody from, they can only produce a small amount and they're part of a co-op up to larger farms. So we're not talking industrial farms, but farms that are very established and have been around for a long time and they can provide more.
Now, curious, so they wanted 50. They have 164.
Yes.
And is that because the need was so great on the other end?
I will say for Ohio especially, there was a great effort in finding more and more people. So it wasn't just that the program found these few people that they knew. So for me, example, I was one of the very first, like top 3 first people to join. And I told everybody I knew. And I know several farmers in Ohio, and they told who they knew. So it was really great to get on, and everybody kind of ramped up very quickly. And it's the Ohio Association of Food Banks who kind of disseminates the information. They handle the money and all of that fun stuff. So they did an amazing job at onboarding everybody very quickly.
So the Ohio Association of Food Banks it got the money from the USDA.
Correct. So,
then they went out and found farmers to fill the need. And
yes.
They did all of the operations and logistics to get food from you to the people who need it through these food banks.
Yes. And the Ohio Department of Ag also was included in that. But it was the Ohio Association of Food Banks that really have the connections with the food banks and with the people who would do the physical logistics.
And when did you get involved?
So the agreement was signed in 2022, I'm going to say early fall. And the manager at that time, Carrie Harshberger, she knew a friend of mine, and he was like, okay, I'm moving, so I can't really do anything with this, but you're kind of exactly who they're looking for. Here's her phone number, call her, get involved. And then called Carrie, had a great conversation. And she was like, okay, this is government. So it's going to be a little while before we can get you onboarded and everything all set and all that. And I said, totally fine. I used to be a project manager. I've worked with the government before. Everything is slow. It's totally fine. Just let me know when I need to start ramping up. So once everything was put in place, I want to say it was April of 2023. And then they count the first year as April 2023 to June 2024. And then there was a second year, and that ends in June of this year.
Okay. And when you were saying like this is sort of rare for a small farm like yours to be a part of this because it's a pretty big contract, how big are we talking?
So I know federally, the one that they announced last October was for 500 million, and that's federally. I think in the first year, 26.5 million was invested in Ohio specifically.
And your farm, what did it mean for your farm?
Oh my gosh, everything. Because it wasn't just, hey, now I get this amount of money every year. It is, I have constant cash flow. I know when I can pay everybody. I can say, hey, I'm not going to meet this deadline, but I can meet that deadline. Or I know that I can invest earlier on because I know it's going to be there. So I can now do a very steady amount of work. It's very low effort for me as far as I don't have to chase anybody down. I don't have to ask what they want. I know that purchase order is in 6 months in advance.
So it's more predictability for your business.
Absolutely. A steady cash flow.
Income predictability is a lifeline for farmers in the U.S., but for many, it's a distant dream. Farming is one of the most unpredictable industries, slammed by the whims of nature. Droughts, floods, and unexpected frosts can wipe out crops in an instant. But that's not all. Prices for crops swing wildly like a pendulum, and farmers are stuck watching as market forces, trade wars, and global conditions dictate their financial fate. Add to that the constant change in government policies and subsidies, which can shift overnight, leaving farmers scrambling. And let's not forget the unpredictable costs of inputs, like seeds, equipment, and labor. Every year, those expenses creep higher while income stays shaky. With mounting debt and volatile supply chains, it's a constant fight just to stay afloat. This instability isn't just inconvenient, it's a crisis for farmers who can't make plans or breathe easy. So when a farmer stumbles on stability and a bit of predictability when it comes to cash flow, it is a big win for them, their farm, and the community they serve.
Not only that, because they are taking ground beef and pork sausage, I can keep the nicer, higher profit items and make everything else into ground. That allowed me to start working in restaurants. I had a restaurant that asked me a couple of times, and I said, there's just no way I can produce that much of one item. And then a month later, I got the food bank program kind of coming on, and I was able to do it all of a sudden, which that alone is not just more money, but it's also recognition. It's one of the nicest restaurants in Columbus. So good stuff for sure.
What does that mean for your operations in terms of scaling up and making sure that you can meet the demand that they have, and then also to serve the rest of your customers?
As any livestock farmer will know, butcher dates are really hard to come by, especially for certain, like beef is really hard and pork is a little bit easier, but not super easy. So I now have been able to work with a butcher to get a lot more dates. So when I have a bunch of customers wanting half hogs, let's say, I can do that because I automatically have that time. I also have a little bit of meat saved up so that if I miss out on a month's worth of food bank meat, I already have that in stock. I am no longer running out of bacon because now if I'm taking 8 to 12 hogs every month and I'm saving all of that bacon and having the rest made into sausage for the food bank, I never run out of bacon. And that is my number one seller. So it gives me a lot of flexibility.
Have you had to raise more hogs and chickens? I mean, you're not raising the beef, but your neighbor is, and you guys are working together. They're working through you to get
Yes.
beef to the food bank?
I went from, I think, around 40 hogs a year to 150. So I'm tripling that. And then I was doing one beef a month, but not necessarily every single month. And now I'm doing two beef every single month without fail. So not only am I getting the benefit, my butcher is getting the benefit, my feed farmer is getting the benefit, the beef farmer is getting the benefit. That means the gas station is getting a benefit. My mechanic is getting a benefit. Like, it is wild to think about how many people benefit. And because I'm a small farmer, small business person, I am going to support other small businesses. So I'm not going to whatever chain mechanic, I'm going to the guy down the street.
That's the impact there.
Yes.
All farmers are really fueling our economy and our local communities for sure. You're a great example of that. So let's talk about what happened. We had an election in November.
Mm-hmm.
The Trump administration started in January, and then there were some unexpected announcements. Tell me what happened.
I will actually go back to October 1st of last year. That's when we were told, hey, the program is going to continue for at least another 2 years, which was so thrilling. We were all kind of expecting it, but you never know until it's in writing. That's still a short amount of time to change plans. You know, some people were already worried that it wasn't happening, so they hadn't planned for this, then had to scramble and get, whether it's seed or baking contracts and all of that kind of fun stuff. So everybody got ready. And then March 7th of this year, I think it was 3 months before we are supposed to start again, we are told it's being terminated. That's not enough time for anybody. All of the money has already been invested. By March, seed has been bought, equipment may have been bought, new fields tilled under, more pasture fence done, all of this stuff, all of this infrastructure has to happen before you can provide the food. Once Trump was elected, I was very wary about this continuing, especially when we started cutting other programs, you know, especially the other grants that single farmers have gotten or loans or whatever else. So everyone's now in a scramble. So you have to find other spaces for this product and you have to make that money back or you cannot continue as a farmer. I am 100% aware that at least some farms are going to go under because of this one decision.
Under the Trump administration, the Local Food Purchase Assistance Program, the LFPA, a critical lifeline for underserved communities, was abruptly axed, leaving a gaping hole in food security across the U.S. The cancellation of this program sent shockwaves through food banks and communities of local farmers, both of which depended on the funding to provide fresh, locally sourced food to those who need it most. By slashing over $1 billion in funding for food purchases that directly supported communities and small-scale producers, the administration inadvertently put local economies, farmers, and the health of vulnerable populations at risk. From school meal programs to food banks, the ripple effect has been devastating. Families are facing greater hunger, and small farmers are losing essential markets. Critics, including lawmakers and food advocates, are calling it a catastrophic move, with Senator Jack Reed decrying the cancellation as a blow to both local agriculture and those struggling with food insecurity. The damage is real, and the consequences of this decision will be felt long after the funding cuts are forgotten.
It was just a bummer, because me as a farmer, if I'm not getting as much money, that's one thing. I'm still going to eat because I have so much in the freezer. If nothing else, I will be able to eat. And there are so many people who are not going to be able to. And that is terrifying. It's hard on us farmers, for sure. But there's a difference between not being able to pay the bills and not being able to eat.
Now, when the contract said terminated, that means effective immediately?
No. So we are able to finish out the previous agreement. So I'll have another 3 drop-offs. So April, May, and June. So that was one good thing for sure, but nothing after June 30th.
I'm just curious, did your county vote for Trump, your area?
Oh, absolutely. Ohio's a swing state, but it's definitely leans more Republican. I'm out in the middle of nowhere. It is disgusting, some of the things that I have seen on bumpers of trucks and signs in yards. And it's not just pro-Trump. It is pro getting rid of anybody who's not white, who doesn't look like them. So it's great and difficult living in this area of America. It's a beautiful country. A lot of the people are really nice, but I also look like them. So it's really hard to kind of deal with both.
And what are the discussions among the farmers now that there are all of these pullbacks on grants, things going on internationally with tariffs that may not affect you immediately, but also contracts like this one, like this local food purchase? Are people having political regrets?
Not that I've seen. So most of my farmer friends are truly upset. I have not seen a whole lot of regret in the people that I know. Now, online, I've seen a lot of it. A lot of people who were told they were getting these grants spent the money up front because, of course, you don't just get the money, unlike the For Farmers movement, which is very helpful. But yeah, so they've put all of this money in with no way to recoup. We moved to this specific farm 2 years ago, and it was not set up as a farm. So we have been hustling to get everything we can to get it in place. But the money part is where it's hard.
And what kind of financial hit does this turn into for you?
Over the 2 years, I think it was 214,000. So multiple 6 figures, like a big chunk. And how I really broke out my finances is that food bank check would cover the cost of feeding and raising both the pork and buying the beef. Anything else was to cover gas, electric, marketing, any of the other sundry things, butchering. But I knew that I could buy and raise these animals as long as I had that money coming in every month. Like, that's what made it so easy to scale up so fast, is because that was coming in quickly.
Was there any other rationale? Did they share any reasons for why they wanted to shut this down?
No, not really. So I'll give you a quote from, I think it's Jack Tuckweiler. He's the Deputy Administrator of the U.S. Agricultural Marketing Service. The quote is, "The agreement no longer effectuates agency priorities and the determination of the award is appropriate." That's a whole lot of not really anything. It's not what we want. Not that we can't afford it, not that there was corruption or it wasn't being used correctly or we feel somebody else deserves it more. It was just, we don't want to.
Have any of the farmers or the Ohio Association of Food Banks, have they had any conversations with either USDA or even Ohio representatives about this?
Yes, absolutely. So in fact, the farmer that I was talking about who wanted to join the program, we are going to have a meeting with our senator to have an in-person discussion about this. The Ohio Association of Food Banks has been working tirelessly to either, get this on the Farm Bill, have it state permanent funding, working with other organizations. And this is from day one that they've been doing this, because we knew this was never a permanent funding. It's great to keep getting it every 2 years, but that's stressful. That's a lot of work. If we can get it permanently in place, that would be great. So I have sent out an email and a social media post asking everybody to contact your representatives, contact everybody, be loud, email them, call them. I have one customer who's fantastic. I love her. She was like, they know me now. The people in the office, they know me. If my representative is not in, then I talk to this specific named person. And so they're hearing it. They're definitely hearing it, which is great.
Is there any word of any kind of strategy from the Food Bank Association to, state funding, I think you mentioned, but what about like private funding? Are they just trying to cobble something together to keep it going and you'll know by June, or?
I don't know that. I do know, because I've sent out all of this information, I've heard from other people who are doing their own nonprofits, as well as, so on my website, I have a $5 donation to the food bank. So I'll match that number in kind, donate that meat. So in the first week, I got, I think, 100 donations. So that's 100 pounds of meat. That's not my typical 1,000 pounds of meat per month, but it's something. I've had some really great customers really step up. So I'm trying to do my little bit there as well.
I know that small farmers are often weathering some kind of storm or other, literally a storm,
Yes.
but also whether it's politics or a meat processor closes, there's always pivoting. This sounds like a little bit more than the usual. What's your plan?
Yeah, so two kind of facets. And like I said, at the beginning of every year, I set 5 goals for the year that, typically there's a sales goal in there, there's a project goal in there. Every single year, it's take at least a half day off every week, which I've never accomplished, but this year is the year, I swear. So one of those goals was to add 2 more wholesale accounts, because, while I love retail and that's really where my heart is, wholesale is easy. It is less effort. It is a lot less time. So I want to bolster that as well. I have 1 for sure. I have 2 onboarding, and I have 1 that's a maybe, and that's the smaller one. So that's okay. I also want to focus more on bulk buying. So that beef quarter, the half hog, that has been going fantastically. I think like 400% over the year so far. So that's great. And then that breakfast sandwich business. So one of my wholesale accounts is to myself, because I'm still paying my wholesale account that money. And then I'm also making margin on the whole breakfast sandwich. And so I have really high hopes for that one. I'm only doing it May through November when I'm out at the outside market, but everybody's excited about it. Everybody's ready for it. It's really great. Where we're at that farmer's market is right between a residential area and the 2 best coffee shops in the area. So it's all walkable. So it's crazy. It's crazy how many people come through. And those coffee shops don't have hot food. They may have a couple pastries. Everybody's been looking for a breakfast sandwich.
Like, despite the hit, you sound very optimistic and like you're just buckled your seatbelt and kept moving with your goals.
I think every farmer needs that ability to pivot. I tried pheasant once. It didn't work. So then I went to ducks. That worked. So we keep that one. I think this year, if everything goes to plan, I may not make any additional money than I did last year. I'll be about even. But that's with 6 months of the food bank program. So next year is really where I've got to figure out either I make less money and that's okay. Or I have to figure out where else I'm going to sell. And, I think my furthest away wholesale account is an hour and a half. That's where my farmer's market is at. So I am traveling a lot already. So at what point have I done all I can in my area? We also ship, but that's not a large part of our business. So just trying to figure out what's next.
Have you heard anything from the food bank about their customers? Meaning, I know it goes through organizations and whatnot, but I'm just wondering, what those organizations are going to do if the food bank can't keep up.
I have not yet, because of course I had dropped off my March drop off right before that, and my next one is mid-April. But I have told at least my one contact, I said, hey, I'm going to save all of these donations until July so that I can still bring you something. It's not going to be nearly as much. Even previously, if I had too much of, let's say, ribs, I can't get rid of ribs very well. Rather than throw them away, I'm bringing them with my monthly drop off. So I told them, I'll always have something for you. It's not nearly as much, but I would feel horrible if I wasn't at least attempting something. So yeah, I am very curious to hear what they say on my next drop off and how that affects them and how, what are their plans? How are they gonna help out? Because I'm sure they've thought about it,
What haven't I covered? What are we missing in this very complicated puzzle?
So a couple of the other things, the program is not just any food. So these are foods that are part of the Healthy Eating Research's nutritional guidelines. So it's not junk. It is whole foods, like truly the same beef and pork that is going into one of Columbus's best restaurants is the same exact beef and pork that our people in need are eating. So it's pasture raised. It is the best of the best. Everyone needs that in their life. They need fresh, whole fruits and vegetables and meat, breads, and the stuff that we're eating is what they should be eating. And not to say that nobody deserves an Oreo here and there, but you need to have some balance, have the opportunity to eat really good food. When we talk about the socially disadvantaged farmers, the goal was to have at least 50% of these producers to be either women, BIPOC, LGBTQ+, veterans, small farms, beginning farmers, disabled, and those making income provided by public assistance programs. So in Ohio, we got up to, so for my farm, I'm a woman, obviously. My husband is a disabled vet. So we may have the same opportunities now, but historically we have not. So I don't know many, let's say, Indigenous farmers or Black farmers or queer farmers that are generational. The only generational farmers I know are cis white men that are in their 50s, 60s. So giving more opportunities to those who have not had them in the past, because we have not gotten the generational wealth. We have all bought our own land or have leased our own land. It's not been given to us by our great, great, great grandparents. So that alone was really cool. The other thing is it is a non-competitive agreement. So what that means is I am being paid the money I have to be paid to continue doing so. That may be very different for somebody else. I may have efficiencies in my 9th year that they don't have in their 2nd year. So I may need to be paid less, but I need to be paid more than the person who has been, and I am not saying generational farming is easy at all. They all have their own hiccups and things to deal with, but if they already have a whole lot paid off, or say they've been farming for 30 years, so they have so many more efficiencies than I do. So that was really great because I could not participate if they wanted everything for $3 a pound. I can't do it. I just physically can't. So that was a really great part.
That list that you rattled off to contain some buzzwords for the new administration.
Oh, yeah. That's, I'm sure, a lot of why this was gone.
Stories like this always make me think, one bite really is everything. Whether it's a budget cut, a dropped program, or a silent shift in support, these decisions show up in the lives of real people like Jamie and in the food system we all depend on. I am your host, Dana DiPrima. If this conversation moved you, share it. Send it to a friend. Start a conversation, because awareness is the first step toward change. And if you want to help support farmers like Jamie, you can visit the 4 Farmers Movement at 4farmersmovement.com to learn more and to get involved. Finally, if you're still here, which you are, it would mean so much to me and to guests like Jamie Pritchard if you would review the podcast on Apple or Spotify. That small action will help more people like you find the show. Thanks so much. And thank you to the amazing Obi team, Sonia Dillon, who co-produces episodes like this one with me, and Russell Chapa on original music and sound editing. I will be back next week with another story that connects the food on your plate to the bigger picture. Until then, keep asking questions, stay curious, and remember, every bite is a vote for the kind of food system that we can build together. See you next week.